Keanu Reeves pulled up in a sleek Ferrari to a run-down auto shop on the edge of Los Angeles, its faded sign barely clinging to life. Inside, an old mechanic named Jim Sullivan worked alone under flickering lights, his weathered hands moving with quiet precision despite the poverty around him. What started as a simple car repair would soon unravel a tale of forgotten kindness and buried struggles, one that would shake Keanu to his core and change a life forever. Before we dive into this unforgettable story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. If you love heartfelt tales like this, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we've got another amazing story waiting for you. The Ferrari's engine sputtered one last time as Keanu Reeves eased it to a stop in front of Sullivan's auto. He stepped out, his black leather jacket catching the faint glow of the shop's flickering neon sign. The place looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in decades, but there was something about it, something honest. Keanu adjusted his sunglasses, scanning the open garage door. Inside, a lone figure hunched over a workbench, surrounded by tools that looked older than the man himself. Jim Sullivan didn't look up as Keanu approached. At 70, his hands were rough and trembling slightly, but they moved with a precision that spoke of decades spent under hoods. Grease stained his faded flannel shirt, and his gray hair stuck out in tufts under a worn cap. Keanu cleared his throat. "Evening. My car's acting up. Think you can take a look?" Jim finally glanced up, his eyes narrowing as they flicked from Keanu to the Ferrari. "Fancy ride," he muttered, voice gravelly. "Not sure it belongs here." Keanu smiled faintly. "A car's a car, right? Just needs to run." Jim grunted, setting down a wrench. "Fair enough. Bring it in." Keanu watched as Jim shuffled toward the Ferrari, toolbox in hand. The old man didn't waste time. Popped the hood, leaned in, and started poking around. No small talk, no fuss, just work. Keanu leaned against the wall, arms crossed, taking it in. There was a quiet dignity to Jim, a stubborn kind of focus that felt rare in a city obsessed with flash and hustle. "You always work alone?" Keanu asked after a minute. Jim didn't look up. "Always have. Folks these days don't fix things, they just swap parts and send you a bill." His tone was gruff, but there was pride in it. Keanu nodded. "I respect that. A real mechanic's hard to find." Jim snorted. "Damn right." As Jim twisted a wrench, a sharp wince crossed his face. His hand pressed briefly to his chest, then dropped back to the engine like nothing happened. Keanu caught it. The flicker of pain, the quick cover-up. "You okay?" he asked, stepping closer. Jim waved him off. "Fine. Just old. Happens when you've been at this 50 years. Keanu didn't push, but the moment stuck with him. Jim kept working, hands steady despite the tremble. "Too many wires in these new cars," he grumbled. "Computers everywhere. Can't feel the machine anymore." Keanu smirked. "Guess I'm lucky I found you then." Jim didn't reply, just kept at it, tightening a belt, testing a connection. 20 minutes later, Jim stepped back, wiping his hands on a rag. "Start it up." Keanu slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine roared to life, smooth and strong. He got out, reaching for his wallet. "How much do I owe you?" Jim shook his head. "Nothing." "Seeing it runs enough." Keanu paused, hand still on his wallet. "You sure? That wasn't a small fix." Jim's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "I don't charge for honest work. Just don't wreck it again." There was a flicker of a smile, barely there but real. Keanu studied him, surprised. Most people would have jumped at the chance to cash in on a guy with a Ferrari. Not Jim. "Thanks, Mr. Sullivan," Keanu said, pocketing the wallet. "Call me Jim," the old man replied, already turning back to his workbench. Keanu lingered for a second, watching him. There was something about Jim, something beyond the grease and the tools. A weight, maybe. A story. He couldn't place it, but it gnawed at him. As Keanu climbed back into the Ferrari, he glanced in the rearview mirror. Jim stood there, a solitary figure under the dim lights, already back to work like Keanu had never been there. The engine purred beneath him as he pulled onto the road, but his mind wasn't on the drive. It was on the old mechanic. His quiet pride, his tired hands, that flash of pain he'd tried to hide. Back at home, Keanu couldn't shake it. He poured a glass of water, sat on the couch, and grabbed his phone. Who was this guy? He typed James Sullivan Auto Repair Los Angeles into the search bar. A bare-bones website popped up. Sullivan's Auto. Honest work since 1975. No ads, no frills, just a photo of a younger Jim grinning in front of the shop, wrench in hand. Keanu scrolled further, landing on a local forum. The posts hit him like a punch. Jim fixed my car for free when I was broke, told me to pay him when I could, stayed late to get my van running so I wouldn't miss work. He's the only one I trust. Keanu leaned forward, reading more. This wasn't just a mechanic. This was a man who'd spent his life helping people, one engine at a time. But there was something else in those comments. A thread of sadness. Haven't seen him much lately. Shop's been quiet. Keanu set the phone down, staring at the ceiling. Jim Sullivan wasn't just some random stop on the road. He was a relic of something real, something this city had forgotten. And that moment, Jim pressing his chest, brushing it off, kept replaying in Keanu's head. He'd seen enough in his life to know when someone was carrying more than they let on. He made up his mind then and there. He'd go back, not for the car, but for Jim. To say thanks, sure, but also to figure out what it was about this guy that wouldn't let him go. Keanu didn't know it yet, but that decision would spark something bigger, something that would ripple far beyond a dusty auto shop on the edge of town. Keanu Reeves couldn't let it go. The image of Jim Sullivan, those trembling hands, that fleeting wince, stayed with him like a song he couldn't unhear. The next day, he sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, digging deeper. The simple website for Sullivan's Auto hadn't told him much, but the forum posts were a goldmine. Each one peeled back a layer of the man he'd met. And what Keanu found wasn't just a story, it was a life, a heavy, beautiful, broken life. Jim fixed my car when I was flat broke, one post read. Told me to pay him when I could. I still owe him $20 and a thank you. Another, he stayed late to patch up my old pickup so I could make my shift. Wouldn't take a dime extra. A third hit harder. When my wife passed, Jim fixed her beat-up sedan just so I could drive it to her grave. Didn't charge me. Said it was the least he could do. Keanu's throat tightened. This wasn't a guy who fixed cars. This was a guy who fixed people. Quietly, without asking for anything back. But the deeper Keanu dug, the darker it got. Scattered between the praise were hints of something else. Used to be the best mechanic around, till those big chains moved in. They undercut him with cheap parts and flashy ads. People stopped coming. Heard he lost everything years back, still won't quit. Keanu leaned back, staring at the screen. Jim wasn't just stubborn. He was a survivor, clinging to a world that had moved on without him. Then he found a post from 5 years ago buried in the thread. Jim's daughter Lily got sick when she was a kid, cancer I think. He sold his house to pay the bills, but she didn't make it. Lives in that shop now. Keanu's chest sank. He pictured Jim under those flickering lights, alone with his tools, and now it made sense. That weight in his eyes wasn't just age. It was grief. Decades of it carried in silence. He kept reading, piecing it together. Jim had opened Sullivan's Auto in '75, back when the neighborhood was full of working families who trusted him with their beaters and their stories. For years he'd been a cornerstone, fixing cars, sure, but also lending an ear, a hand, a break when someone couldn't pay. Then the big repair chains rolled in, glossy and soulless, offering cut-rate deals Jim couldn't match. Customers drifted away, lured by convenience and price. Jim stayed, even as the bills piled up, even as Lily got sicker. Keanu closed his eyes, imagining it. Jim selling his home, pouring every dime into hospital stays, watching his little girl fade, and when she was gone, he didn't have a house to go back to, just the shop, a concrete shell filled with memories and motor oil. No wonder he lived there now. No wonder he wouldn't take Keanu's money. It wasn't pride. It was all he had left to hold on to. But there was more. A recent comment. Jim's been looking rough lately. Think he's sick, but he won't see a doctor. Can't afford it, probably. Keanu's jaw tightened. No insurance, no safety net. A man who'd given everything. His home, his heart, his years. left to fend for himself because the system didn't care. The injustice of it burned in Keanu's chest. He'd seen it before, good people chewed up and spit out by a world too busy to notice. He thought of his own life, the fame, the money, the ease of it all. He'd never had to scrape by, not like Jim, but he knew loss. He knew what it was to carry a hole inside you, to keep going when the world felt empty. Maybe that's why Jim stuck with him. They were different, miles apart in every way, but that quiet pain, that Keanu understood. He grabbed his phone, scrolling through contacts. There had to be something he could do, not just a thank you, not just a coffee. Jim deserved more than that. Keanu's finger hovered over a number, someone who might know more about the shop, the neighborhood. But before he could call, a memory flashed. Jim pressing his chest, brushing it off. Just old, he'd said. Keanu's gut twisted. What if it wasn't just age? What if Jim was running on fumes and no one knew? He set the phone down, staring out the window. The city sprawled beyond, glittering and cold. Los Angeles loved its stars, its dreamers, its winners. But men like Jim, it forgot them. Left them to fade in the shadows of places like Sullivan's Auto, where the lights flickered and the rent was late. Keanu's hands curled into fists. He'd lost too many people to silence, to pride, to a world that didn't stop to help, not this time. He stood up, decision made. Tomorrow he'd go back. He'd find Jim, talk to him, figure out what was really going on. Maybe Jim wouldn't take money. Keanu got that now. But there had to be a way to give him something. A lifeline, a legacy, a reason to keep those hands moving. Because Jim Sullivan wasn't just a mechanic. He was a reminder of what mattered. And Keanu wasn't about to let that slip away. As he headed to bed, the forum posts echoed in his mind, voices of people Jim had touched, lives he'd quietly mended. Keanu didn't know it yet, but he was about to become one of them, and in doing so, he'd uncover a truth that would break his heart, and then rebuild it. The next morning, Keanu Reeves woke with a single thought. He had to see Jim Sullivan again. The old mechanic's story, pieced together from forum posts and gut instinct, had burrowed into him, a quiet ache he couldn't shake. He grabbed his keys, threw on his jacket, and drove back to Sullivan's Auto. The Ferrari hummed beneath him, a stark reminder of the night they'd met. This time, though, it wasn't about the car. It was about the man who'd fixed it. When he pulled up, the sight hit him like a fist. The garage door was shut, the neon sign dark. A scrap of paper fluttered on the entrance, taped crookedly, closed indefinitely. Keanu's heart sank. He stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, and peered through the grimy window. Tools lay scattered, a half-finished job abandoned on the workbench. Jim was gone. A voice broke the silence. "You're the guy from last week, aren't you?" Keanu turned. A man in his 60s, wearing a faded denim shirt, stood across the street by a laundromat. His name tag read Tom. Keanu nodded slowly. "Yeah. Where's Jim?" Tom sighed, rubbing his neck. "He's in the hospital. County General. Collapsed a few days ago. Customer found him slumped over an engine, still holding a wrench." Keanu's stomach twisted. He saw it again, Jim pressing his chest, brushing it off. He should have pushed harder, asked more. "How bad is it?" he asked, voice low. Tom shrugged, eyes heavy. "Bad enough. Looked like he was fighting to breathe. He's tough, but I don't know, man. He's been running on empty a long time." Without another word, Keanu got back in the car. The drive to County General was a blur, his hands tight on the wheel. He kept picturing Jim, alone in that shop, pouring his life into every bolt, every wire, while the world passed him by. Keanu knew that kind of solitude. He'd felt it after losing people he loved, the way it hollowed you out but kept you moving anyway. Jim deserved better than to fade like that. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and despair. Keanu strode to the desk, ignoring the nurse's double-take. "I'm here for James Sullivan," he said. She typed, then nodded. "Room 317, third floor. He's stable, but don't expect much chatter." Keanu thanked her and took the elevator, steeling himself. When he pushed open the door, the sight stopped him cold. Jim lay in the bed, pale and frail, an IV snaking from his arm to a bag of fluid. A heart monitor beeped faintly, each pulse a fragile thread. His eyes cracked open and a weak grin flickered. "Don't tell me that damn car broke again." Keanu forced a smile, pulling up a chair. "Nah, still purring. How you holding up?" Jim shrugged, the motion slow and pained. "Heart's acting like a rusty engine. Docs say it's been quitting on me for a while." His voice was rough, but that gruff edge was still there. Keanu leaned forward. "Why didn't you say something that night?" Jim snorted, then winced. "What for? No point whining about what you can't fix." A nurse slipped in, checking the chart. She glanced at Keanu, hesitating, then whispered, "He's got no insurance. Bills are stacking up. If he can't pay soon, we'll have to cut treatment." Keanu's jaw clenched. He waited till she left, then turned to Jim. "Let me cover it. The hospital, the meds, all of it." Jim's eyes hardened. "No handouts, kid. I've made it this far on my own." Keanu exhaled, frustration rising. "This isn't a handout. You fixed my car. Wouldn't take a dime. Let me do this." Jim shook his head, stubborn as ever. "I don't need pity. Never have." Keanu studied him. The lines etched deep in his face, the pride holding him together like old solder. He wasn't just refusing money, he was refusing to be a burden, even now. Silence stretched between them. Keanu's mind raced. He thought of his sister Kim fighting cancer years back, how he'd have given anything to keep her longer. He thought of his stillborn daughter, the girlfriend he'd lost, the way grief carved pieces out of you. Jim was still here, still fighting, and Keanu couldn't let him slip away because of some damn bill. "Look," Keanu said finally, voice steady but raw, "you've spent your life fixing things for people. Cars, sure, but more than that. You don't see it, but you've kept folks going when they had nothing. Let me keep you going now." Jim stared at him, eyes cloudy but sharp. "Why's this matter to you, huh? I'm just some old grease monkey." Keanu leaned closer. "Because I've lost too many people who didn't have to go. And you're one of the good ones. I'm not walking away from that." Jim's gaze softened, just for a second. Then he turned his head. "Do what you want, kid. Just don't expect me to thank you." Keanu sat back, a flicker of relief cutting through the tension. Jim wouldn't take charity, but he'd let Keanu fight for him. That was enough, for now. As he stood to leave, the nurse's words echoed, "If he can't pay soon." Keanu's fists tightened. He'd cover the bills quietly, no fuss. But money wouldn't fix what was really broken here. Driving home, the city lights blurred past. Jim's life, Lily's death, the shop, the endless grind played like a film in his head. Keanu knew loss, but Jim had lost everything and still kept giving. That kind of strength didn't deserve to end in a hospital bed, forgotten. He gripped the wheel harder. This wasn't over. He'd find a way to give Jim more than a lifeline. He'd give him a reason to keep going, something bigger than both of them. Keanu Reeves didn't waste a second. The moment he left County General, his mind was already churning. Jim Sullivan wouldn't take a handout. Keanu got that now, bone deep, but he couldn't just pay the bills and walk away. Jim's life, his shop, his quiet legacy deserved more than a quick fix. It deserved to live on. By the time Keanu got home, he had a plan. Not just to save Jim, but to give him something he'd lost long ago: purpose. First, he made a call. "Hey, it's me," he said when his friend picked up. "A producer with deep pockets and a deeper heart. I need a favor. No cameras, no press, just cash and some connections." He explained Jim's story, the shop, Lily, the hospital, and within an hour the money was wired. Keanu paid the bills anonymously, no trace back to him. Jim would never know, and that's how Keanu wanted it. But that was only the start. The next day he drove back to Sullivan's auto, parking across the street. The closed indefinitely sign still hung there, a ghost of what the place had been. Keanu sat in the Ferrari, staring at it. He saw Jim in his mind, gruff, grease-stained, barking at a busted engine like it was a disobedient kid. That shop wasn't just a building, it was Jim's soul, poured into every nut and bolt, and Keanu wasn't about to let it die. He started small, A few calls to local mechanics, some old contacts from his biking days, then bigger friends in Hollywood who owed him favors, a couple of nonprofits he'd worked with. The pitch was simple. Turn Sullivan's Auto into a training hub for kids with nowhere else to go. Free classes, real skills. Taught by a man who knew machines like they were family. Jim's not just a mechanic, Keanu told them. He's a teacher who never got the chance. Weeks passed in a blur. Jim got stronger, discharged from the hospital with a grumble and a clean bill of health, thanks to the mystery donor he'd never thank. Keanu met him at the shop the day he returned, leaning against the Ferrari as Jim shuffled up. "What's this?" Jim snapped, eyeing a new sign above the door. "Jim Sullivan Technical Center since 1975. Keanu smirked. "Your new gig." Jim's face darkened. "I didn't ask for this. Don't need my name on some damn building." Keanu stepped closer, voice steady. "It's not a building, Jim. It's your story. You fixed more than cars. You fixed lives. Let's keep that going." Jim glared, but something flickered in his eyes. He didn't argue, just turned and walked inside. The grand opening came fast. Keanu stayed in the background, watching as people poured in. Old customers with gray hair and grateful smiles, young mechanics eager to learn, kids from the rough side of town with nowhere else to turn. The shop buzzed with life, tools clanging, voices overlapping. Jim stood in the middle, arms crossed, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Then a skinny 19-year-old named Marcus stepped up, holding a wrench wrong. "Like this?" he asked, nervous. Jim snatched it, grumbling. "No, like this. Hold it like you mean it, kid, or you'll strip the bolt." Marcus fumbled, adjusted, tried again. Jim nodded, barely, but it was enough. Keanu caught it from the corner, a spark in Jim's eyes, faint but real. The old man started barking orders, showing the group how to tear down an engine, his voice rough but alive. For the first time in years, Jim wasn't alone in that shop. Later, a girl, maybe 16, with a chipped tooth and a shy grin, tugged Jim's sleeve. "My dad said you fixed his truck once, got him to work so we didn't lose the house. I want to learn from you." Jim froze, then muttered, "Fine, pay attention." Keanu saw it then. Jim's shoulders straightened just a little. The weight he'd carried so long shifted, lightened by kids who saw him not as a relic, but as a lifeline. That night, the crowd thinned out. Jim locked the door, turning to Keanu. "Guess I owe you one," he said, voice quieter than usual. Keanu shook his head. "You paid me back already." Jim frowned. "How?" Keanu nodded at the shop. "By showing them the right way, like you always have." Jim didn't reply, just looked at the new sign. Keanu swore he saw a tear glint in the old man's eye before he turned away. Over the next few weeks, the center took root. Kids showed up daily, some rough around the edges, some just lost, learning from Jim's hands-on lessons. One boy, Javier, stayed late helping Jim clean up. "My mom's sick," he admitted one night. "Need a job to help her." "You're giving me that." Jim paused, then clapped Javier's shoulder. "You'll get there, kid." Keanu, watching from the sidelines, felt his chest tighten. This was it, Jim's legacy, alive in every spark plug and every kid who walked out with hope. Keanu thought of Lily. Jim had lost her, lost everything, but here he was, building something new. Not a replacement, nothing could fill that hole, but a reason to keep going. Keanu knew that feeling. Piecing yourself back together after the world breaks you. He'd done it with movies, with bikes, with quiet acts no one saw. Now Jim was doing it with these kids. As he drove home that night, Keanu glanced back in the rear view. The shop glowed faintly, a beacon in the dark. Jim wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, and Keanu had helped make that happen. But something told him this wasn't the end. There was more to Jim's story, more to their connection, waiting to surface. He just didn't know it yet. Months rolled by, and the Jim Sullivan Technical Center became more than a shop. It became a heartbeat. Kids streamed in daily, their laughter and clanging tools filling the air where silence once reigned. Jim Sullivan, once a shadow of himself, stood taller now. His hands still trembled, but they moved with purpose, guiding young fingers over engines, teaching them the craft he'd honed for 50 years. Keanu Reeves watched from a distance, a quiet pride settling in his chest. He'd given Jim a spark, but Jim had turned it into a fire. One evening, Keanu stopped by after a long day. The sun had dipped low, casting a warm glow over the shop. Inside, Jim was alone, tinkering with an old Chevy, a rusted relic someone had dropped off. Keanu leaned against the doorframe, watching. "Still at it, huh?" he called. Jim glanced up, wiping his brow. "Can't leave a job half done, you know that." Keanu grinned, stepping inside. "Need a hand?" Jim grunted, but slid over, making room. They worked in sync, Keanu passing tools, Jim tightening bolts, two men from different worlds bound by something unspoken. The Chevy's engine coughed, then roared to life. Jim nodded, satisfied. "Not bad, kid." Keanu chuckled. "Learn from the best." For a moment they just stood there, the hum of the engine filling the silence. Then Keanu spoke, voice soft but steady. "Ever think about the people you've helped, Jim? Not just now, but way back?" Jim shrugged, setting down a wrench. "Too many to count. Fixed a lot of junkers in my day." Keanu's eyes locked on his. "What about a kid with a busted bike? Maybe 30 years ago, out by the old tracks. You patched it up, sent him on his way, no charge." Jim frowned, squinting. "How, I don't know. Did that kind of thing all the time. Why?" Keanu's throat tightened, but he kept going. "That was me, Jim. Skinny kid, no money, just trying to get home. You didn't ask questions, didn't care I couldn't pay, you just fixed it." Jim froze, his weathered face shifting confusion, then something deeper. "You're pulling my leg." Keanu shook his head, a faint smile breaking through. "Nope, I never forgot it. That bike got me through some rough years. And you gave me more than a ride. You showed me there were still good people out there." Jim stared at him, eyes glistening, then he laughed, a raspy, disbelieving sound. "Well, I'll be damned. Small world." "Yeah," Keanu said, voice thick. "And now I'm paying it back." Jim's laughter faded, replaced by a quiet weight. He looked at the shop, the kids' tools scattered around, the new sign glowing outside. "Guess you did," he muttered. "More than I ever figured." They sat on a pair of old stools, the Chevy idling beside them. Jim's gaze drifted, lost in thought. "Lily used to sit right here," he said, suddenly tapping the workbench. "Little thing, always asking questions. 'Why's it make that noise, Daddy?' Broke my heart when she stopped asking." Keanu nodded, letting the silence hold them. He knew that pain, losing someone who lit up your world. "But these kids," Jim went on, voice rougher now, "they're asking again. Makes it feel like she's still around, you know?" Keanu swallowed hard. "Yeah, she'd be proud of you." Jim's hand shook as he wiped his face, but he didn't hide it this time. "Maybe. Hope so." The shop felt alive that night, more than a place of grease and steel. It was a bridge, linking past to present, loss to hope. Keanu had come to fix a car, but he'd ended up fixing something bigger, a circle of kindness that started with a bike and ended with a legacy. Jim wasn't just teaching skills, he was passing down a piece of himself, and Keanu had helped make it happen. As they locked up, Jim paused under the sign. "Jim Sullivan, Technical Center," he read aloud, almost to himself. "Guess my story's not done yet." Keanu clapped his shoulder. "Never will be." They shared a look, two survivors, tethered by a moment neither saw coming. Driving away, Keanu glanced back. The shop stood strong, a light in the dark. Jim's story wasn't over. It was just beginning, rippling out to kids who'd carry it forward. And Keanu? He'd found something too, a piece of his own past, healed by the man he'd saved. What strikes me most about Jim and Keanu's story is how a single act of kindness can echo across decades, shaping lives in ways we never predict. I think it's a reminder that we're all connected, by the small things we do, the people we lift up when no one's watching. Maybe you see it differently. Maybe you think Jim's pride held him back, or Keanu's help was just luck meeting opportunity. I'd love to hear your take. Does one good deed really ripple like this? Or is it just a feel-good fluke? Drop your thoughts below. I read everyone. Huge thanks for joining me on this journey. Your support keeps these stories alive. If they've touched you, subscribe and hit that bell. Let's keep exploring the human heart together. See you in the next one.